And we'll be fine. Here we are. Hello, welcome everyone out there in YW land. I'm Kim, the CEO at YWCA Northeastern New York, where every day we work to eliminate racism, empower women, and promote peace, justice, dignity, and freedom for all. We are so happy to have you with us today as we continue our Making Herstory live conversation with an amazing woman. There she is, Bernice Rivera, in our community, who has made and continues to make history, or like we like to say, herstory, every day. But first, a bit of herstory on Women's History Month. Women's History Month is a celebration of women's contributions to history, culture, and society, and has been observed annually in the month of March in the United States since 1987. The National Women's History Alliance designates a yearly theme for Women's History Month. The 2023 theme is Celebrating Women Who Tell Our Stories. This theme recognizes women, past and present, who have been active in all forms of media and storytelling, including print, radio, TV, stage, screen, blogs, podcast, news, and social media. Today, we have Schenectady School Board President Bernice Rivera with us. Bernice won her first term on the school board in 2017. She was elected to a second term in 2020, which runs through 2023. She is a member of the Audit Committee, the Safety Committee, and the BOE Handbook Ad Hoc Committee. She is also a New York State School Board Association voting member and a member of the Teacher Center Policy Board. Bernice is the liaison to Yates Elementary School, Mont Pleasant Middle School, and Steinmetz Career Center and Leadership Academy. She enjoys visiting with and getting to know students, families, and staff. Bernice says being a partner and collaborator is important in impacting systemic changes in education that will benefit all of our youth in this lovely city we call Schenectady. Bernice, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Kim. I am so happy to be here with you, and I thank the YWCA of Northeastern for inviting me. Thank you.
You are most welcome. So how are you today? And are you excited to be here with us?
I am. I'm very excited to be here and to have a great chit chat with you. This is exciting.
Wonderful. So I'm going to start with this question, and I know this question was something that you said resonated with you. So what do you do, and who are you, and why are those two things so deeply connected as to who Bernice is and why she does what she does in our community?
Okay. So I work for New York State United Teachers, and I lead the professional learning at the Education and Learning Trust, which is the professional development arm of NYSED. I always tell people, say that 10 times, for educators across the state. I recruit, hire, train, collaborate, and supervise approximately 175 or so facilitators. My role is multifaceted, consisting of developing seminars, workshops, curriculum around a lot of the topics that we're going to actually talk about today. I work closely with union presidents, assistant superintendents who are usually in charge of the curriculum. And I partner with outside entities such as GLSEN, RMM, which is the Rural Migrant Ministry, and other NYSED affiliates and community organizations. So who am I?
Yeah, that's what you do, but who are you?
Yeah, so I will start by saying, and you kind of mentioned this a little bit, I tend to be pretty reserved about my personal life and family, but at the same time, I am intrigued by the question because I've never, ever been asked, who am I? So it makes me start with sharing my mother. My mother passed about 4 years ago from cancer. I've done a lot of crying and a lot of reflection about life. And this was a tremendously hard journey for that it took me to get to this point that I can even talk about it. And when I was asked to do this interview, I felt an intense feeling to share who I am because of who she was. And to me, to know me is to know my mommy. So I'm going to refer to her as my mommy because that's what I called her.
You.
Yeah. And through the love, the learning, and support she gave me, I carry her in my heart every single day. So who am I? I am a daughter of two kind, loving, hardworking, bilingual, successful, very positive Latino parents of African descent who immigrated from the Dominican Republic in the 1960s. They both were dedicated. They had dedicated their whole life to family, progress, education, change, and legacy, and who never allowed obstacles to stop them in their journey. And they shared that with me, even though it's very difficult sometimes, I am a mommy of two amazing adult daughters, Shyla and Leticia. Shyla is a teacher in New York City, and Leticia owns a dance company here in the Capital District area. They're both married with amazing. I have two amazing son-in-laws, James and Deontay, and I'm also very excited of being a stepmother to three great adult children. So we have 34, 33, 32, 31, and 18.
Wow.
Yes, yes.
That's
And I'm
wonderful. Okay.
yeah. And I'm also a proud abuelita, which means grandmother
Mhm.
of three grandchildren, Semaj, Alicia, and Santiago, and they're my world. And I am fortunate to share my life with my life partner, Terry. He has been a strong support system and my yin to my yang. So I had a strong foundation. So who am I? I'm about family, whatever that looks like. For me, it was initially my mother and I. And I am going to talk just a little bit about mommy because, again, my mother was a single mother of me, just me. I have no brothers and sisters. Mommy completed dental school in Buffalo and started her own business in Amsterdam for over 30 years. She started her private practice. When she started her private practice, I was her custodian. I was her assistant. I was her snow removal person. I was her waitress. I was her secretary, the whole nine. I did it all. So, and I firsthand witnessed the challenges she faced, speaking English with an accent. I put the quotations, an immigrant, a woman, a divorcee, a Latina of African descent. During a time in the 1980s when she became a dentist, where women of color, especially, were not readily accepted into the field. And, talk about intersectionality, everything was there.
Everything.
Yeah, everything was there. And I do want to share just one little quick story
Sure.
that my mother told me as she got seasoned in her years that I thought was powerful. She had mentioned to me that when she was going to dental school, she had an instructor that she felt treated her very unfairly, right? So one of the things that she had to do is that she had to make dentures as part of her training. So she said it didn't matter how many times she created these dentures, he kept telling her, you got to do it over again, you got to do it over again, you got to do it over again, to the point that during the summer she couldn't, because we lived in Buffalo, we couldn't see our family in New York City, and she had to do this task the entire summer in order to pass this course. And this course she needed to graduate.
Okay.
Well, when she told me that, it was very telling because my mother, and not until her older age, shared some of the obstacles and the racism that she received and the sexism. But what was interesting, what she told me, and I think this is very telling of my mom, she said, what that experience that I had, she said, Bernice, it's funny because what I had the most success in my practice was making dentures. She said that was actually her successful, thing that she did in her office that made her the most
The
profit.
most sought after and the most,
Yes, yes,
honored because she could do them and do them perfectly.
yes, yes. So I also will say I was a proud middle school social studies teacher who loved young people. I was fortunate to meet and teach. I came to work feeling fortunate every single day that our families trusted me to teach and to be part of their lives. What an honor. And I still hold that to me, even though I'm not in the classroom. I feel this work that I do in education is an honor, and I take it seriously. I treated each and every one of my kids as kids or students as if they were my own flesh and blood. In addition to my family, they were and are my world. And I made sure that I showed them in every single way every day. What do I do? Why do I do it?
Yeah. Why do you
Why
do
do I
all this?
do all
I
this?
mean, you kind of answered it, but I want to hear what you have to say in regards
Yeah,
to why.
yeah. I live to plant seeds of hope, inspiration, love, life, happiness, and possibilities in each person I meet, especially our youth. And in order to do that, as a society, we must work tirelessly. And I don't even see it as tirelessly. I feel that this is, when you do something that you love, it motivates you, it
Mhm.
energizes you, and you do get tired. I'm going to be real. You get tired, but that energy keeps you moving every single day. And I love it. Um, and I really work hard to create and recreate systems that place our young people on a field that is equally attainable for them. Honestly, we all have to remember the fact that economic insecurity, race, language, immigration status, disabilities, LGBTQ, gender, all factors that are real and
Mhm.
have been historically real in our country. And when layered with intersectionality, those assets, because I do see those as assets, right? We are women. We are women of color. We are women that are disabled. We are women who are single. I mean, there's so many intersectionalities. Those are assets.
Mm.
Unfortunately, though, there are barriers and perceived negative traits in this society that do not see them as assets.
Mhm.
But I do this work because I know it's a calling and I know it is important work. And my existence is for service. And I saw that in my family.
I feel that in our conversation that the passion is coming right out of your desire to make education, the world, our community a better place for children and their families. And I feel that passion as you're speaking. And I appreciate the fact of you sharing your mommy with us, because I think that brings a reality for all of us, and because we all have a mom,
Yeah.
and whether your experience with your mom was positive or negative, you always love your mom. And I can feel that there was a great connectedness there with you and her. So thank you for sharing that. I
Oh,
appreciate that.
you're welcome. And
And I
thank you
hope we talk
for,
more about her.
yes.
Let's go right to the second one. What traits do the women in femme presenting folks in your family share? How has that informed your opinion of what we should be like in the world?
Sure, sure. There are so many traits, and I'll just list some of them.
Yeah.
I would say selflessness, humility, spirituality is huge in my with my mother and my family. They were family oriented, strong, kind, and to me this is important, humorous, because
Mhm.
life, you have to be able to laugh. you know
Absolutely. I
yeah.
completely agree.
Oh yeah, energetic, thoughtful, resilient,
Okay.
which many of us are. Many women are so extremely resilient,
Mhm.
unapologetic in the face of
Mhm.
adversity and isms,
Oh, love that.
hardworking, straightforward, and what I call the extended hand mindset, which is the complete opposite of the crab in the bucket.
Okay. Explain
Yeah.
that for our viewers out there.
Yeah. Okay. So the crabs in the bucket is the theory or the thought that when people, and I'll use women, when women move up into leadership, instead of extending a hand to help them up, they're like crabs in a bucket. And if you think of a crab in a bucket, what does a crab do? It pulls each other down, right? So the hand extended mentality or mindset is that mindset that we, especially, and I feel that all women are leaders. You don't have to be a board president to be a leader. You could be a mom to be a leader.
Mhm.
You can be,
CEO of a household.
absolutely. So, whatever leadership role you have, it is all about extending the hand and lifting each other up.
Love that. Love that. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Great answer there. So what makes you a good leader? Like why, like how did you get uplifted into this role of being a leader in our community? And as you said, all women in your mind are leaders. But why do we need more women in these types of
Yeah.
roles?
Yeah. And Kim, thank you for that question. I almost wanted to reach out and ask people because, that's, I feel I know why I'm a good leader, but I also want to reflect on what others say. So I'm going to use a combination of things I've heard people say
Okay.
about me, but also things that I feel about myself. So I'll start with what I feel. I
Okay.
feel what makes me a good leader is that I am very, very passionate about this work. I've always have been since high school, actually.
Hmm.
I was very active in high school protesting. I was active in with my close friend Yomika. I was very active in college protesting and really speaking up. The things that I spoke up about were different throughout the years, right? But I was very, very much an advocate for isms, whether it's sexism, whether it's like in college, it was a lot about because I was a young mother
Hmm.
and childcare was a huge issue for me. Even though my mother did help me out, she also worked full time, right? So I needed childcare. So I remember SUNY, it was one of the colleges. We They had asked me to speak in front of their board to advocate to have a childcare center in that university, which they never did before, and I did. And I was in my 20s at that time, and it was just in reflection, right? It was just so powerful to know that I played a part in having a child care program at SUNY. So going back to the passion, I've always been passionate, always, always. And I think that's a great quality for a leader because it really shows authenticity, right? It's real, it's coming from your heart. And this work needs to come from your heart, in my opinion. I also feel that even as a teacher, I'm very open to different viewpoints. I may not agree, but I find it interesting and I think it really helps stretch the thinking. And when you're doing this type of work, right, working with the community, working around isms, it's really important to hear another side and to listen to how people explain their rationale around their thinking. Because sometimes we make assumptions based on one statement that people make, but once they have the opportunity to really elaborate, and you think and you understand their background, where they're coming from, their vantage point, it really opens your eyes. So I think another good trait that I have is that I am open to various viewpoints. I'm very compassionate, sometimes to a fault, because I do understand and honor that people come from different experiences, and our experiences evolve, right? I mean, I talked about my mother, and I talked about the good things, but there were some challenging things that happened during the journey, right? And cancer was one of them. I was a young mom, single mom by myself with my two children, and it was hard. It was difficult at times. So I bring all that to say that, I feel compassion is really important when you're a leader. But at the same time, can you be compassionate and strong? Absolutely, right? So strength is a huge piece too, but strength, I feel, is coupled with compassion. So what do others say, right? And I'm trying to kind of think of what other people have said to me. They said, I'm a hard worker.
Okay.
I will, and I know my family knows this, I will work until 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning to get stuff done. And I don't mind doing that.
Okay.
I will
All
do
right.
it. Yeah. I mean, I'm tired sometimes, but
So if I need to find you, I could always, text you at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, "Hey, Bernice, what's going on?"
and it's funny because I
You'll
do
be up.
have, yeah, and I'm telling you, I have community members who text me, and and another thing that folks say that I do respond. I try my very best, even at work. And I think because I work for a union, I am very member driven. I'm very people driven. That if people, connect with me, I want to make sure that they know that they are heard. I may not have the answer, but I will look for it and I will make sure that I find it and I get back to you. So I would say responsive. So I know folks have said I'm responsive, and just kind.
Okay.
I feel that kindness is extremely important, especially when you're doing this work, because it's challenging and it hurts and people will say and do things. And I think just at the bottom of everything, we should be doing things with kindness. And I know that sounds very simplistic, but I think it's really important. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, of course, and observant, I think
Sure.
a good leader, you should be observant. You should really be mindful of the people you have in the room and the people you don't have in the room. And those can be sometimes when you are an able-bodied, able-bodied in many ways. I'm just giving that as an example. You forget that there are people that are able-bodied. So that's a privilege that we have that sometimes, and I try to be very cognizant of it, especially since when I went through what I went through with my mom, I realized, as an able-bodied person, there are things that I have not really looked at, and I need to do that. So observant. And I gave one example of observant, but many other ways of being observant.
Sure. Thank you so much. So when we talk about perspectives of women throughout history, let's talk a little bit about how that is different. So when we open the history books, we know what we're reading in those history books, and it's a single perspective, usually from my previous interviews of the winner, right? Whoever won the war.
Yes.
But American history has looked very different depending on the view of each woman of time. Trans women, immigrant women, Black, Latinx, Asian, disabled, which is some of the stuff we just had you touch on. Why is it important to look back at history, recognizing that there are unique perspectives across identities? And how is it different from the way we typically look at history? So talk a little bit about that, being an educator.
Yeah, nice question. Well, there are so many pieces to that, right?
Sure.
As there's diversity, as you mentioned, there's racial, ethnic diversity, and LGBT, there's diversity. Those different perspectives help shape conversations, help open people to viewpoints or to experiences. I shouldn't say viewpoints, experiences that are not typically in history books, right? Not typically viewed or seen on in the media as readily as other groups. We bring a fresh lens, a real lens to real topics that have been honestly ignored, right? When we're looking at transgender, women of color, we it is important to understand that intersectionality.
Mm-hmm.
We are layered individuals. All women, all people are layered individuals. And with that layerness, that beautiful mosaic of layers that we have, it is critical that I shouldn't even say allow, we invite those voices to the table because it only enhances, and there's a lot of research around this, it enhances the workforce, it enhances education, it enhances interactions, it enhances everything in this society that will uplift our society. We have so many, and I keep using that word assets because everything we come with are assets.
Mm-hmm.
And those assets need to be lifted and elevated for the betterment of all folks.
So that's an amazing answer. You said mosaic of layers of intersectional individuals. Talk a little bit about the students that you interact with each day. I know it's not one of our questions, but how do you see this playing out for our younger folks in our community? What do you see that has changed in the schools to offer this different perspective?
Yeah, I think I will talk specifically. Well, I'll say it in general points, but I also will say Schenectady because I'm so proud of Schenectady. Um, I would say one of the things that we are doing in Schenectady, and we're being intentional about doing in Schenectady with just a strong woman board with
Mhm.
a lot of great feedback and voices being shared, is that we want to make sure that the materials we have are really reflective of our society. All right, because I know there's a lot of arguments. Oh, but it's a reflective of our society in the United States. We are a mosaic of a country. We have so much diversity, and when I say diversity, it's encompassing everything, right?
Mhm.
It's
Sure.
encompassing race,
Mhm.
ethnicity, students with disabilities. It's encompassing language, the whole gamut of things. So one of the things to your question, we are incorporating a multitude of different types of books that really highlight the assets that everyone brings to the community and to our society. We are also providing professional development to our educators to really, and I'm going to say this broadly, it's really important when we're doing all this work to really be introspective and reflective and really look at how has our upbringing, how has our background really molded the way that we think, right? And I'm continuously doing that. It's a forever journey. It's a long journey for all of us, right? To really reflect on why do I think that way? Why do I use the language that I use? So
Mhm.
I think part of the when you were talking about in terms of education is educators really grappling and really reflecting and really having authentic conversations with themselves about why they think the way they do and why do they behave possibly the way they do and why do they use the language the way they do. That's hard work.
Self-awareness. It's a
Oh,
level of self-awareness. And a
absolutely.
lot, we struggle with that. Everyone does.
Yes, absolutely. So that's, I in my opinion, that's the huge part of the work. Once there's an authentic understanding with your own self of where you are in that journey, then the next step to the hard work is how do you dismantle that?
Mhm.
How do you start working to really build an inward understanding of how you, meaning myself, you, Kim, everyone in this
Mhm.
society has a part in this. We all are instruments in all of this that's happening in our society, especially with our kids. And once we own that, I think there is so many possibilities to make true change and authentic change with our students. And I hope I answered your question.
You did great. I loved it. We have so many, as you said, assets in our youth and our young students, especially in our perspective here at the YW, girls and young women who are coming up as leaders, who with confidence, with support, with guidance, with strength, with empowerment, and we want to make sure that they have an opportunity to experience it all. We don't want to give them one viewpoint. We want them to see all viewpoints and then to mold themselves into who they feel they are, right? So that they could be anything. So I think you did an amazing job. So let's talk about the next question. Talk a little bit more about the feminist movement. Let's talk about, you talked about protesting in college. Has the feminist movement succeeded? Why or why not? Throughout history, the feminist movement has often focused only on white, cisgender women and not really included, from historical perspective, women of color, trans, queer voices. How can we be sure to center all women and femme presenting folks in the feminist discourse movement? How do we engage everyone? And have we made any strides?
Yeah. This is a loaded question.
Yes, I know.
It's a very complex question, but I love it. This is going to be one of our Sunday.
We can dabble, right? We can't take a half hour, but we can dabble in this.
Yeah. If we're looking historically, there have been successes, right? The voting rights, laws to protect women from violence, women able to define their roles more than I feel like they did in the past. I feel women feel freer to express their views and their lives as they see fit. So, but I think a huge success of the feminist movement is that we continue to share our voices about the injustices. We are proactive to elect forward-thinking, diverse women in every sense of the word diverse to help make systemic changes. Is there, and I know the question is, are we successful? We are. However, are there things that need to be improved, and are things changing because of the climate of our world right now? Yes. And our society here in the United States, yes. But I do believe in the feminist movement, and I feel it's critical, it's important. We have women who are so strong in the movement to speak up and to advocate, and it's needed. And I'm hoping that we have young, and we have young girls that are going to take that torch and continue on with the feminist movement. So yes. Okay. And in terms of centering, how can we be sure to center all women in the feminist movement?
Yeah.
I think not including all women is concerning, right? I think it's concerning to me because we all have different, again, vantage points, perspectives, and real life experiences. I think we need to push for more forward thinking with the extended hand mindset that I mentioned before, women, because we are also very diverse. So just electing a woman is not enough. It's a woman that we feel, again, the extended hand, right, that are building other women up and have that forward thinking of how can we change the systems, the policies, not only just change the policies, how can we change the policies and make sure they're implemented? Because actually changing a policy sometimes is a lot easier. It's the implementation of those policies.
You can bring people in to sit down at a table, but if they don't have a voice and they don't feel as if they're comfortable and included, then all you've done is given them a chair and not a voice, right?
Absolutely.
So that sounds like the same thing. We have to have people at the table, but then also be willing to hear what they have to say and to take it in and to make it part of what a solution might be.
Absolutely.
Rather than just saying, well, we have them at the table. It's different.
Yes. And I do think it's important too. There are so many good tools out there for having these kind of conversations with a diverse group that can help guide the conversation. Because I know, and I'm going to shift to at work with some of the work I do with the districts, many districts and educators, like, we don't even know where to begin.
Right.
So, how do we even begin having the conversation? So there are tools actually that can help with this equity type of conversation around policy specifically, to ask the questions that may not be asked, because let's say there isn't a person in that room that has that viewpoint, but we cannot use that as an excuse for not engaging in those kind of conversations.
Love it.
Okay. And there are many of those tools. Some of them are called like equity lens tools. Yes, that you can use.
Love it. Okay, great answer. Now we are at 30 minutes, so I am going to go to my last question.
Okay, sure.
We need to do this again.
Yeah.
If you could speak with any woman in history, who would it be, and what kinds of questions or insights would you be talking about and asking?
Okay, I'm gonna cheat because I'm gonna tell you 3 women or
you
girls.
can cheat.
Okay, I'll mention the 3 names and then I'll mention why. Ruby Bridges, the Maribel sisters, which I'm not sure if people are familiar with.
I don't know that.
Yeah, and Sophie Scholl.
Okay, tell us about them.
Okay, so the Ruby Bridges, in case folks don't know out there, she was the first African-American girl to desegregate an all-white Louisiana school. I have the Norman Rockwell picture. I have always, and maybe because I was a teacher, I feel she was such a strong 6-year-old little girl. 6 years old.
Girls rule the world.
Oh my goodness.
Just took it upon herself.
Yeah, with her head up. Love her. So Ruby Bridges. The other one is the Maribel sisters. They were like 18, 20. They're from the Dominican Republic, actually. And they were 3 young girls who were fighting against the dictatorship of Trujillo, who was a dictator of the Dominican Republic.
Okay.
To make a long story short, they were sending out pamphlets, protesting against the dictatorship in secret. However, they were found out and they were actually assassinated. They were bludgeoned to death in the 1960s. And then Sophie Scholl was also a young 22-year-old college student from Germany during the anti-Nazi political. She was an activist, and she was convicted of high treason. She did something similar to the Maribel sisters, trying to educate the community about what the Nazis were doing. And she was convicted of treason, and I believe she was put to death. So those 3 women and my great-grandmother those 3 young people are just powerful to me. I would ask so many questions, and I would say the one question, because I know we're running out of time.
Yeah, you're doing fine.
That would be, how did you find the strength to stand up to what you did during your short life in this world?
Knowing more than likely knowing.
Yes.
What the end result would be.
Absolutely.
And how many of us would have or do have that strength to say, I know what my end result is, and it's death, but I have to do this because I need to do something in our society, in our community, in our neighbor, whatever it is, to make a difference.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Those are 3 that I'm glad you cheated there.
Yeah. Thank you for letting me cheat.
So Bernice, I want to thank you so much. We need to do this again. Absolutely. We appreciate you being part. Is there any final parting words you want to share with us, send out into the YW community for women, girls, educators?
Yeah, I want to thank you, Kim, but I would also say we are assets. I'm going to use that word again. We are assets. We need to remember that we all are wonderful, that we can just let out and spread around the world in whatever manner that you are. And we are all leaders. Yeah, all of us are leaders. And it's really important for us to harness that and to remember that and to understand that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. A true voice for injustice. I'm just going to say some words to describe our conversation today that I've been writing down. Definitely mommy and family. Kindness and humor, introspective, and living to plant seeds, working tirelessly, motivating, goals that are equally attainable for students. We are all women and we are all leaders, and we are also assets of intersectionality. Bernice, you've been amazing. I want to thank all of our viewers out there in YW land for spending some time with us today. On Friday, March 31st, join me for our final Writing Herstory interview at noon, when I have an in-depth conversation with Marion Porterfield, the Schenectady City Council president, to culminate the YW's month-long celebration of women making history right here, right now, and as we like to call it, making herstory. Thank you, Bernice.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.